I'll answer that in a different way, which is, it is, but it's trying to be something else. It is trying to be, so to speak, something independently specified. A living being is made out of molecules, is made out of atoms, and so on, all the way down to physics. And physics tells us that even the atoms are made out of electrons and all sorts of other stuff. And to say that LaTeX is made out of TeX macros is a bit like saying that music is made out of notes, or poetry is made out of letters. Somehow it's
more than the sum of the parts.
Yeah, the fact that it's made out of TeX macros, in some sense, should cease to be important, just as the fact that a piece of crockery is made out of clay is in some sense important, but in some sense it's not important. It could be made out of plastic or aluminium or something. So the forces that shape LaTeX are different from the forces that shape TeX. TeX is shaped out of, the forces that shape TeX are largely the forces necessary to do high quality typesetting, whereas the forces that shape LaTeX, a large part of them are concerned with text processing and document structure, which are similar to the forces that shape, for example, HTML. So it's sort of like an abstraction, you know. We know that everything gets compiled down to assembler code when we write our software, but most of the time we never even think about it. Most of the time we drive a car, we don't think about the relationship between the pedals and the mechanism of the car. We just press the thing. So electric cars are sort of, I've never driven them, but I assume that they're designed to behave rather like petrol cars in terms of the accelerator and the brake. We just drive them the same way. Sorry, that's a long answer, William, to a simple question, and you were right. But I think for modern users, they don't want to know it's made out of TeX any more than when you press a button, you don't want to know how the light is created.
Until you want to change it, and you have to know it.
Yeah.
Is there something like GitHub that has all of the LaTeX code macros?
I've done an experiment on that, and that's a different talk. I've created a repository that's got the past 5 or 6 years of the TeX macros, and it comes out to be about 4 or 5 gigabytes. It's not particularly in a useful form, but the answer is yes, but it's not ready for use.
And all of the macro packages or what?
Yeah, most of them don't change, and when you use Git to store things, it doesn't store duplicates of identical files. Identical files in Git, by definition, you only have one copy.
Mm-hmm.
So over 5 years, most of the macros don't change at all, and so the storage requirements are much smaller. But having something like that useful is a different matter, and I think it's sort of outside the beginner experience. I think the beginner wants something a bit like USB. You can just plug it in and it works.
Another source of problem for me, although this is probably just my problem, not a problem with what I'm going to say, is that I've quite often had difficulty plowing through the documentation of packages and trying to find the answer to what I want. And that's probably my problem, but I think it's tied into the fact that you kind of have to know it in order to learn it.
I think that part of that is because package documentation is
I'm kind
generally
of
combined
struggling
with,
right now with the TIPA, TIPI package. And I'm just getting into it, but I'm having difficulty with that.
Yeah,
A lot of
the
these
difficulty.
packages kind of assume certain things, and until you know other packages, you have trouble learning new ones.
The difficulty, I think, with LaTeX packages is there's so many of them. There's more than 5,000 in the Tech Live distribution. And that's why a book like the LaTeX Companion can be very, very helpful. And we're hoping that Frank Mittelbach will be able to complete that third edition for publication sometime next year. But it will be a large tome. There's just such a vast amount of material. You have to remember that Tech itself was only about 20,000 lines of source code, but there are millions and millions of lines of LaTeX code making up packages. And so it's just a 2 or 3 orders of magnitude bigger job to try to survey those and identify the critical ones and give recommendations. And I don't think that's a problem we can solve easily. It's just fundamentally hard problem.
I think that the complete beginner should not have to know anything at all about packages. And when the beginner gets out of that domain, the problem is avoiding or getting special knowledge of package. Sometimes when you cook, you use what's the word? Ready prepared sauces. And I feel our attitude towards LaTeX packages should be a bit like that, in terms of, here's the starting point for your document, and here are the instructions you follow. A lot of people are technical typists, or want to be technical typists. I know that when I write my mathematics by hand and type it up, and I know that when I'm typing up my mathematics, I want to be a technical typist. I don't want to be somebody who is a LaTeX expert and needs to be a LaTeX expert. And getting to that stage, I mean, a beginner should start at that stage and stay in that stage, but with a wider repertoire. That's the sort of view I take. But certainly packages, I think, is a big problem for beginners, as Nelson said, because there are so many of them. And in terms of the 3-month perspective, the only thing you can do is survey what's out there and make better use of it. I mean, I think in terms of treating people at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, all the doctors could do that were treating people was get to know what's out there and see what works. There's no time to, in 3 months, to develop new techniques or anything. And I know this is a bit hard-headed and not dinner table conversation, but when COVID started in England, Britain, respirators were the great hope. And it was only some time afterwards that it's realized that respirators did keep people alive, but they also, so to speak, did so much damage that they weren't in fact working. And in part that was wanting hope, and part of it was that normally people are on respirators only for a few days. They're in intensive care and they're on a respirator. And you have these COVID patients for whom being on a respirator for a long time is itself another problem. And so there's a limit to what you can do in 3 months in terms of helping people. But the problem with having a big goal that goes a long way is that you lose contact with what's actually happening and you don't have the experience at the ground. And the other thing is you have a big plan, you tend to get taken over by the plan and not see anything, and see everything through the eye of the plan, through the lens of the plan. The LaTeX companion is a big plan, if you like, and I think there's a way of looking at things that creates the LaTeX companion, and it can result in a certain narrowing of things in terms of Maslow's law of the instrument. If the only tool you've got is a hammer, everything you see needs hammering. And that's why contact with beginners such as Kelly and Tate is so valuable, because their experience is the thing that you need to help them with. Shall we stop now? People can say more if they want. You can stay later and chat.
I have to get back to work.
Well, good luck, Tate, and thanks very much for coming along. And I know you've been helpful to us, and I hope we've been helpful for you.
Yeah, for sure. Have a good one.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
I'm going to stop the record.